All right, our last section here is on percentiles. We'll see that percentiles are just another application of normal distribution. So what a percentile is it's a statistic that indicates what percentage of people fall below a certain score. These are simply applications of the normal distribution we've been examining. Very commonly used in standardized testing. People will receive a score in both a raw format and also in terms of a percentile. Generally, those raw scores aren't really useful because the scale on most standardized tests is just weird. So the percentile is going to be a lot more informative. Let's take an example of the GRE. The GRE, or the Graduate Record Exam, is, or was until very recently when some schools started to drop it, very much like the, the SAT for graduate school. It's kind of one of the baseline pieces. It's got sections on verbal and quantitative. Those sections have the means and standard deviation stated here. So the verbal, a mean of 150, the standard deviation of 8. The quantitative, a mean of 152, with a standard deviation of, oh, thank you, a standard deviation of 9. Let's take a look at what that means in terms of these raw scores. So let's say you scored 160 on both sections. You might think right off the bat, oh, I did just as well on one section as I did on the other, but that's actually not the case. That 160 means different things when we're talking about different scales. It would only mean the same thing if both scales, if both sections had exactly the same mean and exactly the same standard deviation. So if you scored 160 on both sections, which section did you do better on? Well, if we calculate the z-score for verbal, we'll see that that gives us a value of 125. If we calculate it for quantitative, we'll see that we're not even a single standard deviation above the mean. So based on that alone, we can see that we actually did better on the verbal section, even though the raw score of 160 is exactly the same. Now, how does this translate to percentiles? Well, that percentile reflects how many people were at your score or below. What that means is basically how many people did you do better than. So all we need to do there is, once again, take the pnorm command. The pnorm command actually will is giving you a proportion, and we just multiply that by 100 to get the percentile. So the verbal score is in the 84th percentile. Not right now, please. The verbal score is in the 84th percentile. I'm sorry, the 89th percentile. The quantitative scale is in the 81st percentile. So that's all that the percentile is just those proportions multiplied by 100. All right, that's it for this section on standard normal distribution.